All right, so thank you guys for tuning in this week. We are tackling the topic of the LGBTQ. If you saw the title, you know that this is going to be a topic, a doozy. And I'm excited. I'm excited to pull this curtain back and really show y'all what's behind this curtain. So I hope you guys will dive in and press in because it's happening. Today's the day. So let's get it. So I figure the best way to kick this video off is to show you a clip of Tulsi Gabbard on the PBD podcast talking about this story about Bethany Hamilton. Now, I don't know if you know who Bethany Hamilton is. She was the surfer that got her arm bitten off by a shark. There was a movie made about her, Soul Surfer. Well, she had come out and was talking against how they're letting biological men compete against the women's circuit in surfing and how it's not correct. Well, listen to this video or look at this video clip of Tulsi explaining this, and let's scratch our heads together.
Why do you think young women specifically are so afraid to speak on this topic?
I think it is that power of self-censorship that has been, that it's kind of a mandate of self-censorship that if you don't go along to get along, then you will be canceled and you'll be attacked and you'll be called names and you will be smeared. Bethany Hamilton is a surfer out of Hawaii. Mm-hmm. You know who I'm talking about. She had her arm bitten off by a surfer,
a
shark when she was a kid.
Yep.
Still competing on the circuit. And once the World Surf League announced biological males will be allowed to compete against women on the tour, she was the only one who had the courage to speak out. She never talks about politics. She is so pleasant, so mellow, doesn't get involved with any of the headlines or anything that goes on, but she recognized that she had a responsibility to speak up, and she did, and she got attacked heavily for it, which I think she expected. And she spoke out in the sweetest, kindest, most compassionate way, just saying that I'm not against anyone, but this is about what's fair and what's right for women on the tour, and it's just not right. Shortly after that, International Women's Day came around, and every year the WSL welcomes professional surfers, men who want to put the name of a prominent woman who inspires them on the back of their jersey for the contest on that day. I think there were 5 or 6 men who wanted to put Bethany Hamilton's name on their jersey that day, and the WSL said no.
Wow.
You are not allowed to put her name alone on your jersey.
A woman's name.
A woman's name.
Yeah.
A woman who has, throughout her lifetime, exceeded all of the obstacles put before her and is thriving as a human being, as a professional surfer, because she had the audacity to speak out the truth. Mm-hmm. This was the consequence. It's good to see. I think slowly, it's not happening fast enough, but slowly there are more women who are being directly impacted, inspired by people like Riley Gaines and Bethany Hamilton.
I was just going to bring up
others.
Riley Gaines. The same story is almost like that,
right.
Just in the swimming with Leah Thomas.
Absolutely.
This whole deal.
But they're inspiring a lot of other women, girls to recognize how powerful their voice can be.
Just in case you got.
Can you believe that? They wouldn't let these men who were inspired by Bethany Hamilton put her name on their jersey because of what she spoke out against, when in fact, she was not speaking anything wrong. She was stating facts. And she was basically saying that this is wrong, you allowing men to compete in the women's portion. They're not women. Somebody probably just needs to come out and say this, but they're not women. All of these people that are trying to play dress up and trying to pretend to be women, they're not women. No matter how much you pretend, you can get all the surgeries you want. No, You're not a woman. If you were born a biological male, you are a man. If you were born a biological female, you are a female. You are a woman. Point blank, period. So all of these people saying that they can identify as a female or identify as a male, or they can call themselves other than, like, for a guy, he, him, like their pronouns, they can they, them call. What is this garbage? What is this garbage? I mean, I don't know if you've heard of this saying, but women who have come out speaking against this have said, my gender is not a costume. And this is true. This is very true. It doesn't matter if it's women trying to pretend to be men or men trying to pretend to be women. Our genders are not a costume. Stop trying to push this narrative and this agenda that you can be whatever you want. That if you felt like you were born in the wrong body, then you can change that. You can identify as whatever or whoever you want to. No, you can't. Now, I want to dive deeper because one of the videos that I put out in the past, which if you have not seen that video, I will link it up in the corner, but I had addressed this topic of how this whole LGBTQ stuff has kind of permeated the churches, and churches are flying this rainbow flag. Pastors need to come out and speak out against this. They don't need to be affirming or endorsing or embracing this kind of toxic culture. And there's this one pastor of a Cornerstone Chapel in Virginia, state of Virginia, Pastor Gary. He actually talks about these topics from the pulpit. He does not shy away from it. And he was reading out of Romans chapter 1, verses 24 to 32. I have a clip. It's kind of a long clip, but he talks about everything that's kind of going on with this whole movement, LGBTQ movement. And I want to play for you this clip. But before I do that, I want to read to you the scripture that he was reading, because he references a verse here and there in this clip. And I just want you guys to be on the same page. So I'm going to have the scriptures for you up on the screen so that you guys can follow along. I'm going to read the scripture and then I'll play for you this clip. So it's, like I said, Romans chapter 1, verses 24 to 32. So God abandoned them to do whatever shameful things their hearts desired. As a result, they did vile and degrading things with each other's bodies. They traded the truth about God for a lie. So they worship and serve the things God created instead of the Creator himself, who is worthy of eternal praise. Amen. That is why God abandoned them to their shameful desires. Even the women turned against the natural way to have sex and instead indulged in sex with each other. And the men, instead of having normal sexual relations with women, burned with lust for each other. Men did shameful things with other men, and as a result of this sin, they suffered within themselves the penalty they deserved. I want to take a pause right here and say, that sounds an awful lot like what's going on today. And you got to think about when the Bible was written. It sounds like it's describing today perfectly, to a T, with this whole LGBTQ movement. Interesting, isn't it? Continuing on, verse 28. Since they thought it foolish to acknowledge God, he abandoned them to their foolish thinking and let them do things that should never be done. Their lives became full of every kind of wickedness, sin, greed, hate, envy, murder, quarreling, deception, malicious behavior, and gossip. They are backstabbers, haters of God, insolent, proud, and boastful. They invent new ways of sinning, and they disobey their parents. They refuse to understand, break their promises, are heartless, and have no mercy. They know God's justice requires that those who do these things deserve to die, yet they do them anyway. Worse yet, they encourage others to do them too. The Bible is very, very clear on this, that the people who are doing this, who are having sexual relations with the same gender, and all of this degrading stuff, greed, malicious behavior, backstabbers, insolent, proud, boastful, all of this stuff, they said they know God's justice requires that those who do these things deserve to die. Yet, they do them anyway. And worse yet, they encourage others to do them too. That is scary. That is very scary, because it sounds an awful lot like today. An awful lot like today. So, without further ado, I'm going to show you this clip of Pastor Gary, and just buckle up, because whether or not you've heard this stuff before, if you haven't, now you will. And if you have, well, you'll hear it again. So let's check this out.
That's what Paul is saying here. Case in point, look at verse 24. Therefore, God also gave them up to uncleanness in the lusts of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves, who exchanged the truth of God for the lie, not a lie. There is a main lie that is circulating in our culture. Paul's writing this in the first century. I mean, times haven't changed. They've only worsened. Paul says, you start living like this, then I'm going to give them over to a debased mind, and people are going to start to dishonor their bodies, and they're going to believe the lie that the culture is teaching. So, case in point, examples. To believe that he can be she, and she can be he, and anyone can be they. Friends, that's dishonoring their bodies. That is exchanging the truth of God for a lie. To no longer refer to women who give birth as mothers, but instead now referring to them as birthing people. Have you heard this? The Biden administration has changed the language in the HHS budget from mothers to birthing people. The government is stamping this new term on the HHS budget in order to make accommodation for women who identify as men who can still have babies but who say they are not women anymore. So now the terminology is changed to birthing people. And that is dishonoring their bodies and exchanging the truth of God for the lie. Some of you are probably, or many of you are familiar with the term conversion therapy. It's also referred to as reparative therapy. Conversion therapy is a counseling approach to help someone heal from the wounds that might have led to same-sex attraction. And the medical community the secular medical professional psychological community has dismissed reparative or conversion therapy as something that is, quote, emotionally damaging and dangerous, to try to help someone heal from whatever might have led to same-sex attraction. Many of the secular professionals call that emotionally damaging and dangerous. And yet, the very same ones who say that conversion therapy is emotionally damaging and dangerous are the very same professionals who say that puberty-blocking drugs, hormone treatments, chemical castration, and surgical reassignments are normative, reasonable, and rational. That is dishonoring their bodies and exchanging the truth of God for the lie. And how familiar are we with allowing now biological boys and men to compete in girls' and women's sports, while shaming women athletes like Riley Gaines, who was here a few months ago, to say nothing about ignoring Title IX, who object to men and boys competing in girls' and women's sports. That is dishonoring their bodies and exchanging the truth of God for a lie. When Paul was writing this in the first century, do you remember who the emperor was of Rome? The Roman emperor at this time was Nero. He's writing things about how debased people become, how depraved people become, how they dishonor their bodies, how they accept the lie. Nero was guilty. Even as Paul wrote in his day, Nero, if you know your history, Nero was married a few times. One of his wives died tragically. Some historians say Nero killed her by kicking her when she was pregnant. But they're not certain, but she died. This is what they are certain about. And after she died, Nero took a young boy, prepubescent boy, had him castrated, and married him in 67 AD. Now you know why I said PG-13 content, right? Married him in 67 AD. Do you know, again, times haven't changed. It just, takes on new definitions. Do you know, if you're not aware, you need to know, that there is a movement the past few years among some in the secular professional therapy community who are trying to replace the word pedophile, and instead of calling someone a pedophile, relabeling them now minor attracted person. MAP for short. Minor attracted person. You can go onto the NIH website today. I did in preparation for this. You can go on the NIH website, and they talk about how using the term minor attracted person instead of pedophile is, quote, less divisive and, quote, less stigmatizing. And it will become something that is more acceptable.
Minor attracted person and birthing people or birthing person? Is this where we're at? Is this where we're at as a society? That you cannot call a woman, like a mother, you say a birthing person, because a woman who identifies as a man but can still have kids, but doesn't want to have kids, now birthing person? We're not encouraging this behavior anymore. We cannot encourage this behavior anymore. These people need mental help. They need mental help. They don't need to be encouraged. This is the problem, is too many people are encouraging them. Good for you, good for you. You go ahead and be who you want to. Go ahead, be who you want to. It's your life. It's your life. No. Remember the video that I did about modern day feminism? The clip that I included in there about PBD talking about having many kids? And he said part of the problem is these tolerant Christians. It's okay, it's okay. They can also. This is what we're doing. Too many people in the church don't want to speak the truth because they don't want to offend people. They don't want to drive them out of the church. They said, well, we want to bring as many people in as possible. We want to bring people in. Whereas, yes, that is a good mindset. You want people to come into the church, but you have to stand up and manage expectations. Jesus did that. He stood up and he managed expectations. You cannot let people come in the church, live their lifestyle, and say, it's okay. No. You tell them what they're doing is wrong, hate the sin, tell them that they need to change, and support them in changing. Encourage them to change, not encourage them to continue to live in sin. This is not what we're doing. The virtue signaling of putting up all these flags, not to mention what I've also said before, how they've ruined the rainbow. The rainbow was initially meant as a sign that God gave to his people so that he would not flood the earth anymore. And instead, they take this and they use it to represent this whole movement. It's sick and twisted. We cannot keep encouraging this. Now, I do have another clip to show you. Ben Shapiro. I don't know if you guys have heard him. Pretty sure anybody who's been around for any length of time has heard of Ben Shapiro. He's pretty popular in the conservative field, political commentator. But this was like a 6-year-old video. He was talking, he was having a speech somewhere at like a college campus or something, and he was answering questions, and this one lady was asking the questions about the whole LGBTQ stuff. So I would like to play this clip for you because it's still so relevant today, and there is something in particular I want to pull from this clip and address with you. So let's look at this together and then dissect it a little bit afterwards. So
how do you say that some people don't have privilege when you basically just said that trans people aren't valid? They're not a thing. They're just girls pretending to be boys or boys pretending to be girls.
Okay. Oh, someone's excited. Okay.
That's biological, but gender is a completely different thing.
No, gender is not disconnected from sex. So.
It's not completely disconnected, but it's still a cultural thing. It's still from society. It's
okay. No, it is not in the mind. Okay, you're not a man if you think you're a man. And I didn't say pretending, or if I did, I shouldn't have said pretending. Let me amend.
You said playing.
Okay, I said a boy who thinks he's a girl. That's the usual phraseology I use. Not playing. I usually say a boy who thinks he's a girl or a girl who thinks he's a boy, which is technically what we're talking about here. As far as the actual psychological issues at play, it used to be called gender dysphoria or gender identity disorder. Now they call it gender dysphoria. The idea that sex or gender are malleable is not true. Okay, and I'm not denying your humanity if you're a transgender person. I am saying that you are not the sex to which you claim to be. You're still a human being, and you're a human being with an issue that I wish you Godspeed in dealing with in whatever way you see fit. But if you are going to dictate to me that I'm supposed to pretend that men are women and women are men, no. My answer is no. I'm not going to modify basic biology because it threatens your subjective sense of what you are.
Okay, but you're still saying these kids should not be accepted because they don't really fit in either place? They can't just
I'm saying that the Boy Scouts have a standard. You must be a biological boy to be a Boy Scout. You have to be a boy to be a Boy Scout.
Where's that written though? Okay.
In the name Boy Scouts. Because this is a very because for all of human history, boy meant boy and girl meant girl. Boy did not mean girl.
People are learning more things in culture.
And if I call you a moose, are you suddenly a moose? Okay, if I redefine our terms. No, yes, that's right. Men and women are a completely different thing. This is true. Have you ever met a man or a woman? They're completely different.
It's a completely different thing. You can't just say you're a cat. It's not a thing. It's genders. It's not saying you're.
Okay, why is that? I don't understand. Why? Okay, let me ask you this. Okay, I won't ask you how old. I will ask you how old you are. Okay, because you're young enough that it's probably not insulting to ask you. So.
I'm 22, so I'm probably young and naive, right?
No. Why aren't you 60? Why aren't you 60?
Because it.
And why can't you identify as 60? What is the problem with you identifying as 60?
Because it's not the same as gender. You can't just.
You're right. Age is significantly less important than gender. You can't magically change your gender. You can't magically change your sex. You can't magically change your age.
You can still legally change it. People recognize.
You can't legally change your age, by the way.
Obviously, you can change your name, you can change your sex, you can change your identity.
Just because you can do things legally doesn't mean that they are correct biologically. You could do lots of things in the past that were incorrect biologically and correct legally. For a long period of time in the United States, sterilization of the mentally ill took place. That didn't make it okay. Skinner versus Oklahoma. Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes wrote the decision.
That question was so perfect, what he asked her. Why can't you identify as 60? Why can't you identify as 60? Some of you might say, well, because I'm not 60. And there it is. I'm not 60. Well, okay. If you're not 60, that's fine. So then you are what? 34? 24, 16, 50, 80, whatever your age is, that's what age you are. Whatever gender you are born with, that's what gender you are. You cannot change it. You cannot identify as a different gender. And there are only two genders. Two, not multiple genders. All of this garbage and nonsense. Picture with me a parking lot, which should not be hard considering where I'm at. But picture with me a parking lot. And in one of the parking spaces, there is a heaping pile of trash, garbage. And what this movement is doing, and everybody that supports this and tries to affirm and encourage all of these people, they're taking this garbage home with them and pretending like it's treasure, putting it in their living room and just like it's gold. No, it's not. It's trash. It belongs in the dumpster. Quit taking this trash home and trying to make yourself believe that there's treasure in it. It is trash. It belongs in the dumpster to be thrown away. We cannot encourage this kind of behavior anymore. We have to draw the line, a hard line in the sand. We have to say, no more, no more. And I believe that the reason why it's gotten so bad in our country, this whole movement, LGBTQ movement, BLM movement, all of this stuff, is because of the sudden push to, it's really not even that sudden anymore because the push happened like long ago, but the push to remove God from our schools, from the Pledge of Allegiance, from everything. And you remove God from all of this, there is a vacuum that happens. And when this vacuum happens, something else is going to stand up and take its place. Sorry about that. Construction. But something is going to stand up and take its place. And what is going to fill that place is demonic and evil and toxic. So why don't we push to put God back in schools, to put God back in the Pledge of Allegiance, to start praying in schools again? Now, you might be thinking to yourself, all right, that's great, Alex. That's great. I kind of like what you're saying, and I kind of see what you're saying and where you're coming from. But not everybody is a Christian. Not everybody believes in God. That's between you and God. That's between you and God. Just because you pray in schools does not mean that you have to be automatically called a Christian or you automatically have to believe that we're going to force you to believe. It's praying. And trust me, it's better for you than all of this garbage and trash. So I would encourage you to really look at this issue and let's interlock arms and start standing up and pushing back on this lie that is being pushed in the media and around, that it's okay. You can love who you want to. It doesn't matter. No, you can't. So thank you guys for tuning in this week. I hope you learned something. I hope you were encouraged by something. And if this challenged you at all, if this ruffled your feathers at all, then I would say dive deeper into this issue. And if you are offended by what I talked about in this video, then you got a question to ask yourself. Why? Why is it offensive? Why is it offensive? If it's offensive because it goes against what you want to do, what you want to believe, who you want to love, it's in the Bible. It's laid out plain and clear in the Bible. And I will not say sorry for this. Not now, not ever. So I hope you can unplug and separate from whatever situation you're in enough to really go back and research for yourself and see that life on a whole was better when we did things God's way. Life is simpler God's way. It always has been, and it always will be. We got to stop pushing God out of everything. We got to start actually bringing him into everything, every aspect of our life. That movement, that LGBTQ stuff, bring God, allow God into that situation. Allow him to help heal you from that and change you. So I thank you guys for watching. Please share this with people and like and subscribe. And until next week, stay safe.